visited with Mr. Morgan about this, but unfortunately, I think one of the fatal issues in his bill is it is unconstitutional. When the tort reform was passed for medical malpractice in 2003, the Constitutional Amendment specifically provided that the legislature could limit or cap non-economic damages with a 3/5 vote of the House and the Senate. However, the Article 3, Section 66, A and B specifically say that the legislature cannot cap or limit economic damages. This bill caps and limits economic damages, and therefore I think it violates that constitutional provision.
Okay. Members, any questions? All right. Charlie Ginn, I have you here on behalf of the Texas Trial Lawyers Association and yourself registered against the bill.
That's correct,
All right.
Mr. Chairman and Vice Chair, members of the committee.
Maybe you can speak to Representative Flores' question.
I can. There are there's some differences in this bill. There's some exceptions laid out. You still have a major, in my opinion, gap for the student. When I was 16, the first thing I wanted to do was go drive my car. I think there's a little bit of a generational shift. I think we all know young people and students that are graduating without that interest. But they do get driver's license. They do get that for the form of identification. Maybe they go to school here in Austin at UT, where a car isn't as necessary, but they find themselves borrowing a car, and through no fault of their own, maybe they're sitting at a stop sign, and someone runs into the back of them. They're still open, right, to that dangers of the damages cap. One thing I do want to address, Louisiana and Michigan are both pay-to-play states, to use Representative Morgan's term. Both of those states, even after enacting the bill, still lead the country in uninsured and underinsured drivers. The fix for uninsured, underinsured drivers is to increase the civil penalties, increase the difficulty of getting your license back. Nobody wants uninsured drivers. But the draconian and drastic punishment for punishing someone who had no negligence in a car or who had no negligence walking across the street and is struck by a car, right, only benefits the insurance company. It doesn't benefit the driver of that other car. It doesn't benefit taxpayers. It doesn't benefit, certainly punishes those who have been maimed and hurt and injured. The only beneficiary for that is the insurance company. That said, I'll defer the rest of my time. Thank you.
Okay. Members, any questions for Mr. Ginn? Yes, Chairman Dutton.
Thank you. I'm still trying to figure out how this would work. I think one of you mentioned that if there was a rear-end collision and the driver who got rear-ended didn't have insurance, what would happen?
Well, under this bill, their recovery would be limited because they did not have insurance or had not had it for 6 months. They would be limited in their recovery, both economic and non-economic.
How about the passenger in
The passenger is a carved-out exception in this bill. That's one of the exceptions. I'd go to the bill to talk about all the exceptions, but the passenger is an exception. A minor is an exception. If your insurance lapsed within 45 days and you can show proof of insurance up to a year before that is an exception. I think a military personnel is an exception. All of those things, and I do want to say thank you to Representative Morgan for meeting with us. All of those things, I think, again, are well-intentioned in the pursuit of making sure that our drivers are insured. But I think it is impossible to come up with all the scenarios in which an innocent driver or pedestrian is struck by another vehicle, and it limits what justice and compensation they can pursue because somebody else made a mistake.
Right. So, and what about the DWI provision in the bill?
That's one as well. I didn't mean to leave it out. I just didn't have the bill open in front of me.
Okay. And it also includes, I guess, someone who's evading
Evading
a car.
arrest.
Correct.
Yeah, because that would be a felony.
Correct. Yes, sir. But what it doesn't cover, though, Chairman Dutton, if I have maybe a parent or a grandparent who no longer drives, they don't have a car anymore, they don't have insurance anymore, and they're struck because they haven't had insurance in a year, it caps their damages. They've paid insurance for 50 years, and maybe because of age or another debilitating condition like Alzheimer's, they don't get to drive anymore, and they're hit, it could cap their damages.
And in states where they've done this, has the insurance cost gone down?
When I looked at that statistic, the last report that I could read was from 1998, and it affected insurance. I think I agree with Representative Morgan that it was within 3% of the cost. I didn't consider that to be a major adjustment, especially when you consider the major states that followed this in Louisiana and Michigan still lead the country in underinsured drivers, especially if the motivation for this bill, which again I agree with the motivation, is to encourage more people to get insurance. But the average person who is not carrying car insurance, I don't think is going to understand what they're opening themselves up to, right? I mean, I think there's a carrot and a stick in life. And this particular carrot, I don't think is sufficient to get them to where we want them to go. Certainly not when you compare it to the dangers that this bill represents for injured Texans.
And so I was wondering, Leslie, how much does underinsurance or insurance cost you for protection against drivers who have no insurance?
I don't have the specific numbers on that cost. I'll be happy to get that.
But it's cheap.
Yeah.
Underinsured coverage is cheap,
That's what I thought.
very cheap, compared to the primary policy.
And so the only thing, if anything, you would be saving would be that.
Potentially.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Okay, thank you. Members, any other questions? All right, thank you both for being here and for testifying.